Hello everyone, today we're going to look at using Excel to find quartiles, percentiles, and box plots. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a data set. So I'm just going to use the numbers 1 through 10, and then also 17. So if you want to play along, you can use your own numbers, whatever you want is fine. And we're first going to look at quartiles. So off to the side, I'm just going to start making a list of things we're going to find. So we're going to find the minimum. We're going to find Q1, Q2. Oops, I'm actually going to bring these down one more. So minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3, maximum. And then we'll also show some percentiles in a minute. So in order to find the minimum, we can just there are going to be two ways to do it. The first way is equals, because again, we want Excel to do the math. And the command for minimum is just min. So I type in min. Again, a whole bunch of options come up. The first one is min, returns the smallest number in a set of values. That's exactly what I want. I open the parentheses, and again, it's telling me just to put in the numbers. So I'm going to click and highlight my values, which are in A2 through A12. I'm going to close the parenthesis and hit enter, and it gives me my minimum, which I know is 1. To find the maximum, I can do the same thing. I can do equals, and then the command for maximum is max. Again, I go to max, returns the largest value in a set of values. That's exactly what I want. Open parenthesis, it tells me to list my numbers, and I know that it's A2 through A12. And again, it shows me my maximum, which I knew was 17. In order to find the quartiles, there are two different ways we can do it. So if I look at Q1 and I start doing equals, I want a quartile, so I'm going to type in quartile. Now if I look at it, I have three options here. But see this guy with the little exclamation point and the triangle? That just means this was an older version of Excel, so you really shouldn't use it if you have a newer version. But the first two say quartile.exe and quartile.inc. So the exe says returns a quartile of a data set based on percentile values from 0 to 1, exclusive. So this is doing things like greater than or less than. And if I moved down to INC, it is inclusive. So that is things like greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Depending on your data set, it will give you different values if you're doing the exclusive or the inclusive. It doesn't matter to me which one you do, just be consistent. So if I'm going to do .exe for quartile 1, make sure you do .exe for quartiles 2 and 3. So I'm going to do both of them here, and we're going to see the difference. So for now, I'm going to do the exe. So I open my parenthesis. It tells me array, comma, quart. So the array are the values. So again, I'm going to click and highlight my values, and then hit comma. And then for quart, it gives me options of 1, 2, and 3. So 1 gives me the first quartile, the 25th percentile. 2 gives me the median, the 50th percentile. 3 gives me the third quartile, the 75th percentile. So I'm doing Q1, so I'll do my array, comma 1, and it gives me a value. For Q2, I could do the word median, because I want the median, but I'm going to, again, be consistent, and I'm going to use quartile.exe, my array, again, it's A2 through A12, and then I want the second quartile, so comma 2. And then for the third one, I'll do the same thing, quartile.exe, my array, and then quartile 3. So I get these lovely numbers. My minimum is 1, Q1 is 3, Q2 is 6, Q3 is 9, and the maximum is 17. And I'm going to label this, because I said I'm going to do both, so that was exclusive. So next to it, I'm going to do the inclusive version. So for the minimum, again, I could do equals min, but if I'm going to use the inclusive, then I can actually use quartile for it. So if I do quartile.inc, it's going to tell me the same thing, array, and then my quartile. But now I've got 5 options for my quartile. If I hit 0, it does the minimum. If I hit 4, it does the maximum. So for the exclusive, my quartile options were just 1, 2, and 3. But if I'm doing the inclusive, I have 0 and 4 also. So I'm going to hit 0 because I want the minimum. Oops. Gives me the 1. And then for to be a little faster, I'm just going to copy and paste this. So for this one, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to change the quartile to 1. And now for the Q2, I'm going to paste it back in again and change my 0 to 2. For 3, I'll paste it back in, change it to the 3rd quartile. And then for the last one, again, I'll copy and paste it, and now my quartile is 4, which is the maximum value. So if we notice our minimums and maximums are the same, that shouldn't make a difference if I'm doing exclusive or inclusive. Right? My minimum is my minimum, my maximum is my maximum. The things that are different are my Q1, Q2, and Q3. Okay. So again, there are differences between them, but as long as you're consistent throughout the problem, it doesn't really matter which one you use. Okay, so we'll come back to this when I talk about Boxplots, but we're going to do a little bit with percentiles now too. So let's look up something like the 10th percentile and the 88th percentile. Okay. So just like with quartiles, we can choose between exclusive and inclusive. So the command for percentiles is percentile. And we get .exe.inc. So we'll do the exclusive first. So the array, again, is A2 through A12. And then K is the percentile, and you want to make sure you put it as a decimal. So the 10th percentile will be a 0.1. And it gives me 1.2. If I do it with inclusive, so percentile.inc, array A2 through A12, K again is 0.1, we'll see that they are different. Especially since I only have 11 points here, the numbers could be fairly different. So for the 88th percentile, percentile.exe, my array, and then 88% is 0.88. Whoops. 0.88. Not sure what happened there. I get 13.92. If I do it with inclusive, so percentile.inc, A2 through A12, 0.88, I get 9.8. So again, they are different, but just be consistent. They might also be different than how we would do it by hand, because there are multiple ways that you can find quartiles and percentiles. So they might not be the exact same as if you're doing it by hand. Okay, so that's how we use the quartile and percentile commands in Excel. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Boxplots. In order to have Excel create a Boxplot, you need to have Excel 2016 or higher. So if you're using one on your laptop or your home computer and you don't have 2016 or higher, you won't be able to do it on Excel. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my data, go to Insert, all these lovely graphs. I'm going to go to Recommended Charts, and it's going to give me a bunch that they think I might want to use, but I'm going to go up here to where it says All Charts, and then Box and Whisker. So it's not in alphabetical order, which is kind of weird. So I'll hit Box and Whisker, it'll show me a box plot, and I click OK. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So there are a couple of things that we can do with this box plot. First of all, you're going to notice there's an X right here. It's kind of hard to see. It's pretty much the same color as the blue, but that is the mean of our data set. So typically box plots don't show the mean, but that's what that X is. Okay, so remember, this line down here is the minimum, this one is the maximum, or it could be an outlier. We'll see in a second. and then the top of the box, because this is a vertical one, is Q3. The middle here is Q2. The bottom of the box is Q1. So if I right click it and I go to Format Chart Area, so the same thing we did with the bar graphs and histograms. It's going to bring up some options over here. Under Chart Options, I'm going to go to Series 1 and then click the bar, because that's going to show me my picture. I have some options here. I show inner points, so that will show where all my data points are. Show outlier points. Sometimes you don't want to see any outliers, so that will go away. I'll show you that in a second. Show mean markers, so if I uncheck this, that little X has disappeared. I'll put it back up. You can have it show a line for the mean, and then over here is the quartile calculation. It's automatically set to exclusive, so it's using these points right here. But if I change it to inclusive, it's going to use these points. So if I hit inclusive, it now shows me that I have an outlier. And if I don't want to see any outliers, it'll get rid of it. I'm going to put it back in. So this is my 17. So if I'm using inclusive, 17 was considered an outlier. If I'm using the exclusive, it's not. It's just considered the maximum. And that's because my IQR, my interquartile range, changes because my Q1 and my Q3s are different. So my IQR will be different, and so the definition of the outliers will be different. Okay. So like I said, it does make a difference if you're doing inclusive or exclusive. Just make sure you're being consistent throughout the problem. Okay, so that's the basics of quartiles, percentiles, and box plots. So give it a go, play around with it, and let me know if you have any questions.